One of my favorite anime of all time, Trigun, is getting a remake/reboot. Currently, I'm cautiously optimistic. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm not always the biggest fan of CGI in anime. It has been done well before, but for me, Trigun is really tied to the 90s aesthetic, so the new look feels a little weird. Also, I recently read the manga for the first time, and it has given me a whole new perspective on anime adaptations. Trigun is one of the 90s anime classics, not as well known as other sci-fi westerns like Bebop, but still one of the greats in its own right. That's why it was weird to find out just how different the anime and manga are. These differences are the result of the fact that when the anime was being made, the manga wasn't finished yet, but they still needed to tell a full story in 26 episodes. Also, instead of just making the manga move, the creators of the Trigun anime had the guts to really adapt the story, change it to fit a new medium, something that, in my opinion, they did very well. Now, someone else is taking on the task of telling the Trigun story in the anime format, so it might be useful to examine the 90s anime and figure out what makes an adaptation good in the first place. When it comes to anime adaptations, there will always be a few people mad that things aren't exactly the way they are in the manga. This is, in my opinion, a very dumb thing to get mad about. I just realized it will be difficult to make my arguments without giving you a general idea of what Trigun is about. No spoilers, just basic information. Also, my earlier point that wasn't to shit on people who want a Trigun maximum anime, I want a maximum anime. It's just that certain individuals take little details way too far sometimes. Trigun follows the travels of a man called Vash the Stampede, the most notorious criminal on the planet Gunsmoke, with 60 billion double dollars on his head. The destruction he leaves in his wake is like a natural disaster, giving him the nickname the Humanoid Typhoon. It is suspected he wiped an entire city off the map by himself. He is also a staunch pacifist. That's really the focal point of the story. A man who believes killing can never be justified, traveling through a world where blood flows quicker than water. While Vash wants to live a peaceful life, violence follows him everywhere. But so far, he's been able to survive without compromising his moral code. I know I just presented it as something super serious and dramatic, but it does have its lighthearted and entertaining moments. While watching, you will, for the most part, enjoy yourself. One character can't really hold up a story, but fortunately, Vash is joined by a few fellow travelers. Meryl and Millie are two insurance agents who've been given the thankless job of following Vash around. Why? Well, the best way for their company to save money is to prevent Vash from causing any more destruction. Obviously, nobody has been able to kill or capture the Humanoid Typhoon, so they've sent out two diplomats to surveil and bargain with him. Meryl is very serious about her job and often fed up with Vash's antics. But underneath the surface, she begins to care deeply for him. Millie is a gentle, timid person in a huge body. She's not the smartest around, but always wants to help people and do the right thing. These two are very different from a companion Vash picks up later on in his journey. Nicholas D. Wolfwood is a traveling priest spreading the word of the Lord. He's also, ironically, great with a gun and willing to kill at a moment's notice. While the two develop a strong friendship, Wolfwood's willingness to kill clashes with Vash's high regard for human life. A lot of the story, especially in the beginning, is just us looking at the kind of lives these people lead on a resource-poor desert planet. It does eventually build to a confrontation between Vash and his brother Knives, who has a completely opposite view of mankind. Not only does he think their lives are valueless, he actively despises humanity and wants to eradicate it. The description I've given so far applies to both the anime and the manga. Beyond this, their plots are very different. I'm here to argue that doesn't matter, and despite the differences, they still feel like the same story being told. The next section has some light spoilers in it. I'll try to be vague, but if you really care about getting the full spoiler-free experience, go watch the anime, read the manga. In fact, the anime is available right here on YouTube. I don't know if that's allowed, but I think it's pretty cool. No matter what, the anime was going to need to make changes. The quality of the final product comes from knowing which changes to make. A huge part of the storyline is modified in some way to fit into 26 episodes, especially towards the second half where there was no original material to serve as a basis, which, unlike Game of Thrones, actually turned out great. Some plotlines are lifted straight from the manga because they fit neatly into 20-minute episodes or because they are crucial to the plot, but other episodes contain completely new material or have events from the manga rearranged in a more time-efficient way. For example, the Fifth Moon episode combines two duels which are separate in the manga and the actual incident itself. Often these rearranged episodes push the plot forward while the new material serves to flesh out the world and its characters without contributing much to the overall narrative. But I would say they're still really important for the emotional and thematic arcs of the story. Some have even gone as far as saying that over half of the Trigun anime is filler, but I don't think that word is appropriate because it implies the content is only there to pad out the runtime, and that's not the case. It does serve an important purpose. This becomes clear once we examine how the anime is able to do the original work justice while changing so much. 1. Characters have their background and motivation changed or simply not explored, but they still feel like the same person going through the same journey, because characterization and a personal arc are what define a character. For example, in the anime, Wolfwood's backstory is drastically cut down. Entire characters who are very important in the manga just don't appear, but he still feels like the same Wolfwood because he has the same cynicism, the same moral doubts, and at the end of his journey reaches the same revelation. Obviously, not every character could be given the same treatment. Just by looking at screen time, it becomes clear that Vash and Wolfwood were given the most care so that they would resemble their original counterparts. Here, the fact that a lot of Trigun villains aren't that complicated actually works in the show's favor. The gun-ho guns lose little to no character depth apart from Legato and the fact that Elandrina the Crimson Nail doesn't appear in the anime. The only character that really suffers is Knives because the anime can't explore the origin of his hatred for humans. Knives in the anime is a really simple character, but he still works great as a villain. Because his motivation is obscured, this invites a more thematic reading of his conflict with Vash. Let me explain. In the manga they have a battle of epic proportions that fits the end of a sci-fi story, like laser weapons shooting into the atmosphere levels of awesome. Meanwhile, in the anime, the two duel in a garden somewhere in the desert. It feels a lot more like a symbolic clash between their ideals. All of that brings me to my second and main point. The most important part of a good adaptation is that the themes of the original story are preserved. Ultimately, it's the subtext that makes Trigun interesting at all, even to people who don't care about that sort of stuff. Let's say you're just looking for entertainment. You don't care about analyzing the media you consume beyond surface level plot and characters. You will still feel it when the themes of a story have been handled poorly. Because the themes you're trying to convey have a huge impact on the entire creative process. Story, characterization, world building, visuals, and the best kind of stories are those where a shared theme can bring all these separate elements together into one cohesive experience. My favorite example of this is the Nausicaa manga. A lot of you probably know about the movie, but I think it's really worth it to go read this manga. It is Miyazaki at his most explicitly political, and it is glorious. I mean, the whole thing just comes together beautifully. It conveys its core message with such force through every possible channel of storytelling and visuals. It's perfect. I think it has the power to politically influence someone and philosophically and politically influence someone. That is truly the mark of a great piece of media. It is my favorite manga of all time. That is partially an emotional statement, but I still think that it's up there among all of the greatest. Damn, I'm really fucking dick riding. I'm not putting that in. Like, it was like way too dick ridey. Holy shit. See, Vash and Wolfwood are interesting to watch because their personalities play off of each other. Why? Because their ideas about the world are in tension. It's the same with Vash and Knives. Yes, the two have emotional reasons to dislike each other, but their fight is also a fundamental philosophical conflict, which makes it more compelling and engaging. Even the setting of the planet Gunsmoke itself is a way to explore the actions of people stuck in a hopeless situation where the only good option is the lesser evil. I would put it this way: themes are the skeleton that hold the characters, the world, and the plot of a great story together. Because the creators of the anime understood the themes of Trigun so well, they were able to improve on one of the most important moments in the story. There is no way to avoid spoilers in this part, so if you haven't seen the anime, skip ahead. In order to defeat Legato, Vash will have to make a compromise, a decision that will force him to rethink his own moral code, especially what purpose it serves. Is his pacifism just a way for him to keep his mother figure alive by following her, frankly, naive and unpragmatic ideals, or should it ultimately serve the living? That means confronting the idea that sometimes deadly force is the only moral option. Legato isn't a physical challenge for Vash, he's a question. When you can't escape the moral conundrum any longer, what will you do? Vash's choice is a moment of enormous gravitas. Him and Legato lock eyes, intense close-ups full of emotion as he has the gun to his head, and suddenly it cuts to a static, wide shot that feels cold, distant, and grim. No music, nothing, you just hear the gunshot as he puts a bullet through his head. In the manga, this scene takes place well into the third act, when Vash is also already in his fight with Knives, and it really takes away from the importance of the moment. Also, there isn't really any time of reflection afterwards, while in the anime, Vash is emotionally distraught for an entire episode. I think I've talked enough about how good this anime adaptation is. Now it becomes time to look at the new Trigun content and figure out how well it does. All of this has been made before I watched Stampede, so my perspective would be unbiased. So either this video is a lot longer than it already is, or I might make a separate video about the first season. In the meantime, I wish you all love and peace! I don't know how he does the thing with his fingers, like the twist. I can't. Love and peace. Does that look good? How does he twist them over each other? I don't know. Whatever. I got around 3 episodes into Stampede and then it kind of lost me. It's clearly not trying to adapt previous Trigun stories, so I can't look at it through that lens. My problems with it really just are individual problems with Stampede in a vacuum. And that is a shame because the Mankana is way more involved with this project than the previous Trigun anime. And that could start an interesting conversation. Does experience and skill in writing manga translate to being good at making an anime TV show? I don't think it does, necessarily, because the two mediums employ such different story structures. Maybe if people really think I should give Stampede another chance, I'll look at it through that lens, but for now, I'm just leaving it alone. If you're enjoying Stampede, more power to you. But I would recommend checking out the other Trigun content because I think it's superior to this version. But that's just my opinion and you don't have to agree with me. All of that being said, thank you for making it to the end of the video. I hope I had something interesting to say or at least gave you a new perspective on things. Again, love and peace. Hello, fellow Jesus freaks.